Hello, everybody. Welcome to the event kickoff to the Sacred Blueprint for Our New Earth interview series. It is such a delight to see all these amazing people joining from different parts of the globe to hear from the world's leading earth energy experts. I'm Aisha Rose Melody Hassan, and I will be your host for this series. I am an architect, alchemical healer, and the creator of the Sacred Blueprint, a cutting-edge vessel of courses and programs for women architects and designers and property owners on how to birth their dream sanctuaries through a new modality that bridges spirit with architectural design. This series is a response to a call I've been hearing on very high volume from Gaia and the nature spirits. They gave me a big kick in the butt to quit my job in conventional architecture to pave a way that is aligned with the spirit of the land and to partner with nature. And you know, this series is about discovering the abundance and the magic and the beauty that's possible when we partner with nature and build healing sanctuaries to create a resilient and abundant future. Now, whether these sanctuaries are your homes, your gardens, communities you may be visioning, or even master plans for the city, the question is, how can we partner with nature and the spirit of the land in a practical and conscious way? So all of our phenomenal guest speakers will be answering this question with their wisdom and knowledge and expertise in the fields of feng shui, soulful architecture, spirit-led architecture, sustainable design, spatial alchemy, land healing, land energetics, house healing, and more. Now, before I introduce our first guest, I'd like to thank Geometric Models for aligning with the impulse of the Sacred Blueprint and sponsoring our event again. Geometric Models is a superb research group who is dedicated to the investigation of Mother Nature's sacred geometries. If you are interested in sacred geometry, modeling, and design, then please don't forget to check out their website for educational tools at www.geometricmodels.org. Okay. Now, we would love to know, the chat is open. We'd love to know, where are you from? What do you do? Are you an architect, a designer, perhaps a property owner? Maybe you're interested in geomancy and land energetics. We would love to know. You can also share your aha moments, share your feedback, your whatever comments are streaming through as you listen to our guest speak. At the end of today's session, we are keeping today's session shorter. Our guest does need to go after 45 minutes. So today's a quick event kickoff. And we will be opening up a bonus Q&A session at the end of the talk. So make sure you stay until the end, because this is only for participants who join live. So you get some one-on-one time with our guest today. You will also be receiving access via email to the limited time recordings for the entire week. Each recording is up for 48 hours as of upload. Make sure you check your spam or promotions folders just in case the login and password information gets sent there. Okay, if you have a Gmail or Hotmail account, sometimes that happens, and we can't do anything about it, unfortunately. So now, for our next guest, she is an architect who is trained in yoga and brings a very spirit conscious way of practicing architecture and leading her team. She's an award-winning architect that's been recognized for sustainable development and awarded the LEED and Silver Gold certifications. And what I love about what she does is she helps people create spaces that are authentically theirs and help them to grow into their futures. I'm so delighted to introduce architect Rachael Grachowski. Welcome. Hey, welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Have you
Thanks for
again,
having
Rachael.
me. Yeah, it's fabulous to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Love that you're part of this movement of co-creating the sacred blueprint with us.
It's everything, frankly. Last year's conversation had me flying high for about a month or so. So, I'm super happy to be here and talk about it more. And I think, for me, every time you get to a certain point, not just in your own practice, but when you see your clients coming to you for spirit-centered design, it's time to start pushing the envelope further, and try to invite more and more people along the path.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Time to push the envelope further and invite more and more people along this path. It is the future. It is the future. And not in the sense of a dogmatic kind of thing, like where it's like, okay, these are the rules to practice, architecture in a spirit-led kind of way. No, not at all. But much like what you share about how you create spaces for your clients to be, so it's authentically theirs, and do it in a way that is authentic to you. It's needed.
I think it's a returning home. We often talk about it as like the future, like design it, that it is the future. And I just keep thinking about it as returning home, whether it's returning home to yourself, returning home to your land, returning home to your family, or a lineage that is somewhere, embedded in ourselves that we can sort of uncover. It might be from generations ago.
Oh, so beautiful. A returning home. Yeah. That is so powerful. That is so powerful and so deeply connected to returning back to nature in many ways, right? To our nature, to our true nature.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, that's what we are, right? We're part of the ecosystem, and we kind of forget that. We feel like we're witnesses, but we're actually part of it. And design is like that too. Like I often think about the way a project develops as an entire ecosystem in and of itself. Like there's this interconnectedness between not just the land, but every individual who works on a project is part of that ecosystem. Their contribution, their blood, sweat, and tears, all goes into a project. And I think when we start to see design and architecture as that, we suddenly start to understand that we're all one, the unity of it all.
I love it. Yeah, that lens of the ecosystem and how that brings us to being all one, that we're all one, that consciousness that we're all one. Rachael, briefly, just so for people don't, I know we're limited with time, but just a brief story of, how did you get into, well, you're a yoga teacher, you're a trained yoga teacher. How did you get into architecture, yoga, and how are you now weaving the knowledge of yoga, the consciousness of yoga into how you design and lead your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I think one of the things that I'm in the moment of right now is kind of going back to that returning home language that I've returned. Merging these two things is returning home for me. And so, I had my first yoga class when I was in second grade, and it was something that was like embedded in my body. It was like in public school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Like who would think, right? Like you wouldn't know that. but then I moved to Colorado, which happens to be where I am right now. About to show my daughter a college 12 minutes from the home I grew up
Goodness,
in.
what a
So again,
moment.
returning home, right? And when I moved out here and was in school, there were all these moments. Like at that point, Colorado, Denver was really on the forefront of like what people at the time would say was kind of woo-woo, right? Like this openness. And so my school had like an open floor plan, meaning there were no actual walls between each class. And these are things that stuck in me. Like I could feel it in that scenario. I could actually, like you might not have your friend in your classroom, but because they were like a beat just over the bookshelves, you still felt connected. Right. So there was something that was about the architecture and the space organization that I experienced as a child that, at the time it was just a sensation. It was a feeling of safety that didn't draw me at the time into architecture. I didn't really know that I wanted to be an architect until I was in college, maybe my second year.
Yeah.
And I started to, and by the way, in college, I too was taking yoga. I too was taking Ayurveda. I also was doing meditation classes. So this has been like a thread through my life kind of happening over here. Architecture then came up. What got me interested in architecture, and it's all related, is that, I started traveling. And when I would go to other parts of the world and I would start to realize how old these structures are, and I had this sense that there was this real history, and it wasn't just about the detail of the architecture. It's about every experience that happens in a building or in a space over time, like the energy of that, whether it's a celebration, whether it's a funeral, whether it's a dinner, like the structure is infused with that history, right? And that becomes part of the future.
It's got shivers, yeah.
And that's what kind of brought me into architecture. So bringing the two together, like I became obvious to me.
Yeah. Yeah. While doing the yoga in school, ever since grade 2. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because architecture is about sensation, right? Like to me, it's a connection to, the landscape. It's a connection to the other individuals in the structure. Sometimes it's a connection to a brand. It's not always so ethereal, but it can be in the background, right? Like there's the way two materials come together and noticing the beauty and how that might invite you into the present moment. Like that's beautiful. It doesn't have to be always spoken about that way.
Right.
To make it real. Like, it can be both.
Yeah. 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 And bringing you back to that present moment, which I feel that your work really does. There's this serenity, there's this grounding, there's this coming back. And does that for you connect to the wisdom of nature? Like what for you, what is, I mean, maybe that's not the exact, language that you use when you're communicating your work, but, in spirit of the theme of this interview series, for me, I see it, Rachael, like the way that you approach leading your team and the way that you're listening to your clients, really listening. For you, what is that? How do you partner with nature in the way that you design?
Yeah, so many different ways. I think, on the really base level, having the narrative, the conversation about materials. So materials that we build our spaces out of mostly come from nature, right? And so there's a real, I think about the Native American culture and how like when they would do a hunt, they would really do a ritual around, the gratitude of the animal giving up its life. I feel that way about structures too, whether it's the wood that we use to build our structures, or the mud, or the sand, or, so I talk to clients about this. Not everybody really understands, but that's okay. Again, like you meet them where they're at, and you drop seeds, right? Like somebody asked me the other day of like, well, how do you get your clients to buy into this? And I'm like, I don't always. Sometimes I'm just doing it. You change the world through the things that you do, not the things that you say, not how much everybody else understands. It's just by continuing along your path. So I talk about things like the countertop in your kitchen, and thinking about how many millions of years or thousands of years it took for this stone to be created, and the minerals, and sometimes the shells, and sometimes everything that goes into that, and that's what creates the beauty, right? Like that's the essence of what we're allowing into our lives, and we should really honor it, because nature is giving that to us. It's a gift, right? So that's one way we bring nature. And I think other ways is again, like looking at the lineage from the people on that land, right? So, we have a number of projects that are farm projects. Those projects, we sort of collect the history of who it was that farmed that land. So, for example, we have a project right now that is, we took an old farm building where they were actually working with different farm equipment to, if it broke down, whatever, and that's where they would fix the equipment. Right. And then the building next to it is was old schoolhouse. And so, the schoolhouse is being turned into a residence, and the other building is being turned into a grain mill. And so to mill local native grains. And this whole area has been historically known for the wheat that it would grow. So it's like telling that story. So that space where they're going to mill the grain, there'll also be like a whole education program to invite students and adults in. So it's like it's the holistic nature, right? So talking about the land, using materials from the land, and sometimes allowing the land to sort of, or nature to push us in one direction or another.
Ah, that's so beautiful. Yeah, listening to that story, that's what it's coming forth for me, listening to the story of the land and expressing it through the architecture, rather than plopping something foreign, right? Well, let's just demolish this, and I want to, like, which is what we were used to from a lot of the teachers, professors that taught us, or right, like, can you relate?
Oh my gosh,
like the ego architects that would just be like, if it's not this color, it's not cool.
Completely. I've been talking about that a lot, about my thesis project a lot lately, because people have been asking me these interesting questions similar to what you were just talking about. And my thesis project in grad school so many years ago was a wellness retreat. And it was
perfect. Yeah.
How perfect, except that my professors were like, well, that's not meaningful enough, right? So it was a wellness retreat on land that was Native American, and there were some structures that we were theoretically going to reuse. So there was sustainability, and additionally, the intended materials were all to be green. And I was also told not to waste my time with the green materials, right? So all of the things that now we're talking about, that are now happening, are things that I already understood was right. Yeah. Was like the way of the future was, and it's not even the way of the future, it was just the way of the land, the way of our human nature, the way of connection. And how did it take us this long?
And how did they not see? Well, that's a different paradigm, which is actually crumbling. And, not to judge or blame the professors. I mean, they taught me so many things. But it's like, how could you say that don't even bother with the natural materials or the wells? Well, you for sure saw into the future, or like you said, just the way of the land, the way of connection, the way of nature. And I mean, the fact of the matter is we're dealing with health pandemics across the globe. We're dealing with health crises. Resources are depleting, right? All of that, natural disasters. And now look, LEED, right? LEED, BREEAM, right? All these certifications have come up, and people do need to heal on a very deep level. So what better program than to have a wellness center? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, we have LEAD, we have the well program, and Living Building Challenge. We have all these different programs. And I think they're great. And I think it's sad that they're necessary, right? Like, why? I think ultimately, because it's also, it's like a system set up for education, but it's also a system that can sometimes become a barrier to designers, architects, engineers, working with the truth behind that, because it's like, it's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work to get the certifications. So even a lot of our buildings that we do have done LEED certification for maybe like 5 or 6 of our buildings. And I think now we really don't do it. We still follow the principles.
Right. Because you care.
We don't necessarily, because we care, but we don't necessarily go through the certification because it's, for one, it's less meaningful. And for 2, it's expensive. And for 3, it's time consuming.
Yeah. I've heard the Living Building Challenge is really tough. That's a really tough one. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, really to approach it from a place of compassion and heart and from within, and that we don't actually need all these, I mean, I don't want to call it gimmick, because we really do need that for a certain level of caliber and professionalism. I get it. And why don't we just all naturally design this way? Right. Yeah.
Well, I think people don't, I think architects, again, talking about school a little bit, but like in school, you're not taught to connect with yourself in order to design, right? Like, you think about artists, you go to a gallery and you read like the premise behind artists' work a lot. And I think it's so heart-centered, right? Like, most of the time it's like some internal expression. And I think architecture and design and landscape, like, all of this has the possibility of being the same. But in order to get into the moment to actually feel sensation, we have to come into our body. And that's where we come back to yoga. That's what yoga does for you. It allows you to it's about like stilling the fluctuations of the mind and being able to listen to your body and the sensations that you experience. And when you start to do that, you start to know what that feels like. Then you can go into spaces and places and you can start to feel the land. You can start to feel the flow of a space. You can start to, like, it's those things that, we just, instead of looking at the beauty of a space with our eyes, you looked at the beauty of the space with your whole body, with all of your senses.
So key. The beauty of the space with all of your senses, with your body, and to come from a place from within. I love it. Yeah, it's so powerful. And that is for sure the evolution of humanity is actually moving in that direction, into more of a space of feeling rather than the mind, right? More from the heart, space of healing and listening with our bodies. That's where I feel the feminine intuition comes in. And I want to ask you one more question before you share some of your office's projects, which bridges beautifully with a question I have. In the group and one-on-one mentoring programs that I offer for women architects and designers, I often encounter a fear talking about spirit? What if, or talking about soul, talking about energy? They have a fear. There's a fear of being ostracized, even if they're not aware. I discovered that later. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to be ostracized by the architecture profession. I literally had a terrifying fear of that. And, to fear of speaking about spirit, using this language with clients, colleagues, friends. What advice would you give to women architects and designers who are in this kind of threshold space of like, I know I can feel things. I'm really sensitive to energy. I want to build in a better way. And I want to come out of the closet, the woo closet, basically.
Yeah, it's, I think I have so many sort of responses to that. And my first one is, you have to release the fear because, if to truly be a boundary breaker, you have to say things and do things that are uncomfortable. And when you do it with confidence, people just follow, right? So, even in my office, not everyone who works for me is what, necessarily comes from the background or understanding that I do. They're not yogis. They're not they don't travel to different sacred lands to sort of feel, to understand the sensations or the feelings that are embedded in the land. But I talk about it, like I start our office meetings with like a Dharma talk that might be about, it might be about listening, or it might be about feeling, or it might be about truth. And so as I drop those seeds, some people are kind of like on their phones, and other people are like, what did you say? Like, wow, that's an aha moment. And so it really depends. And it's the same thing with clients. For one, you have to read the room a little bit. Like we definitely have clients who specifically come to us because of this language. They actually, interestingly, are the ones that are the hardest to bring along the path. Like they're there for a reason, but they're the hardest to bring along the path. I can drop seeds all day long for people who don't know what I'm talking about. And they might not understand right now, but later they're going to understand when their project is done. I woke up this morning to this beautiful narrative from one of our clients about, it's the first night she slept in her home, and how peaceful and elegant and grounded she felt being in her home. Like she's not necessarily on either side of the fence of this, like feeling the energy, but she clearly does. Yeah. She might not be up here, right, but down here she is, like in her heart, like she
esoteric wisdom and whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm, but she's feeling it.
Mm-hmm. And so I find it's like, you decide how much you think you can say, and you just keep saying it. And I think the more you practice, as you practice using the language, the less scared you are. Yeah. And that's what I mean. At some point, like once a couple people receive it well, you kind of, right, you get less and less concerned about the ostracize. Honestly, like I tend to not, my office is 14 people of 13 women and one man. And I will say that it does feel a little different when I'm in the room with all women, male architects, right, versus all female. So I say all of this knowing that I've created a culture and environment that allows me to be exactly who I need to be.
That's so beautiful, Rachael. It's just congratulations on that success story with your client. She feels grounded, at peace. I'm not sure if I'm reflecting back the exact words that you shared, but And that distinction is so important. You know, it's like sometimes we create our own monsters when it comes to the fear. And I love what you shared about sometimes even the people who say, the clients who say that they're spiritual and have a lot of experience, they're uber conscious people, can sometimes be more challenging than people who actually may have a clean slate, really open-minded. And I'm not saying the others are not open-minded, but it's just, it reminds me a lot of some of the surprises I've received, like by someone, you know, I remember when I was practicing in Canada, person's living in the suburbs, you know, seems like very conventional, straightforward. And then you're just like, wow, every moment I'm being surprised by this person. And you wouldn't think, right? So we also come a lot with a lot of judgment in that fear realm ourselves.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, one last thing on that I want to share is like, you know, I think our fear, those are our own obstacles. So, you know, like for myself, I do sort of pray to or meditate with Ganesh, the remover of all obstacles. And for me, you know, I see myself sometimes getting in my own way, like the fear of somebody's judgment when I start to talk about the energy of their space. That's not their fear. That's not, they're not creating an obstacle. The client's not creating an obstacle. I've created the obstacle because I'm not willing to like reveal it. But as soon as I remove that obstacle, no, you have no idea how far you can go.
So it's again going back within, right? It's a big going within, and maybe doing some shadow work, right? And being truthful with what is arising within you. It takes time, takes practice, takes maturity as well, right? In different phases of womanhood, we reach different levels of ripening of the fruit, and it is what it is. That's a natural growth, a natural cycle, natural awarenesses that come forth in those phases. So this is so beautiful. Well, I know we've got about 15. Well, I want to open up the bonus Q&A session. So in 5-7 minutes, I would love to see, and I know the audience wants to see some of your work. So what can my assistant Zoe share with the audience right now? Which image?
Why don't maybe bringing up the dining room that has just a lot of texture. We can talk about that a little bit, because I think this project, you know, talks about the textures of our lives, and it talks about the idea that we bring materials that have this handmade feel to them, and how the artistry behind, you know, whether it's a troweled on painted finish or whether it's handmade pottery, textures. You can see even on the floor here, the silk rug has like the pattern of the rings from a tree.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And, you know, the handmade light fixture. So for me, I wanted to show this picture because, you know, earlier we talked about the idea that you can see a connection of humanity through design. And again, because all of these pieces, all of these elements have this handmade quality, I can tell the story of who was involved, you know, who designed the chair. And then somebody had to like say, yes, I love that. And then somebody had to, you know, put it into production. And then, you know, it was sold, and then it had to be transported. Like even the mundane like that is an example of how we're all connected and how we all have a responsibility, you know, in this time when so many people have been talking about, you know, the value of work, and is it really, you know, do we work too hard? Are we too committed? And I keep thinking, for me, I keep going back to this idea that it's the word work that is so questionable to me. Because when you're truly in your purpose, you start to see that it's a responsibility to humanity. It's a responsibility to each other, because we are all providing something that the other person can't provide, right? Or they need it provided for them so that they can go do the work that they're going to do, right? Like that's what it is. It's an exchange of energy. And when you do design, when the design kind of reminds you of that, through the handmade quality, it really makes a big difference. This table also happens to be a table from my furniture line, Legend by RHG.
Yes.
And so it's a hand rubbed finish on the maple, and then an artisan who I work with regularly did the metal strip that goes down the middle. So again, like bringing in these pieces that are designed by one, built by another, and sometimes multiple artisans. I think that's something that I wanted to show.
I love the textures too. Just the texture of the silver wall too, like that it's not like a flat gray, which often can turn into something dead. It's living. It's like this living metallic texture, and then the layers of all the objects. It's really beautiful and calming, actually very calming.
And the piece of art in the middle there is called Layers, and it is about all the layers of life. You know, how we have all these different for each individual, right? Like you talk about when you sort of return home to yourself, it's like peeling the onion. You learn a little bit more about yourself. That's what that artwork is about.
Wow.
So
beautiful.
And then maybe we can bring up one of the either the exterior image or the one of looking through the dining room, where you can actually any of these that you can see nature. I think, talking about how we honor nature, part of we spend 90% of our time inside, at least in the United States. It's probably different in other parts of the world.
90%? Is that like a recent statistic?
It is a recent statistic. It is increased. I think it used to say like 84 or 72 or something, but recent statistic that I came across or heard was shared with me over the last maybe month or so. In fact, I was with somebody from Global Wellness, and they were talking about it. And so this idea that we can connect with nature even from the inside, that you create these framed views to remind us that, we are part of nature, that we can honor nature, whether we are inside or out. And hopefully it will draw us in that direction.
For a walk.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so serene.
And there's something about being like at the level of the leaves, right? Like this house happens to be up high.
Yeah,
and I
it feels like it's almost like a tree house up there. Yeah.
Exactly. It goes back to my thesis project, frankly. And a lot of our projects, when I think about it, these elements that I had embed into my project get repeated through our current projects. So this house, in my thesis, I had like a reading room. You went up all the stairs up to this reading room that was amongst the trees, the leaves, and you were surrounded as if you were in a tree house. You really were in a tree house, and that's what this house is too. And my own house is somewhat similar to that. You try to recreate these sensations that were meaningful to you.
Oh, I love it. I love it, Rachel. Are there any other images you want to share? Just as we
maybe there's one about the exterior of a house. Again, this is talking about how you integrate more contemporary design in the history and the old and the new. Because I think the other part that I just want to talk about real briefly here is, where I live, a lot of the homes have been here for a long time.
Mm.
And you can either completely gut them, tear them down, and start over, or you can honor the past and step into the future.
Yeah.
So that you can live in the present. And I think that's really where my heart lies. Like, I'm definitely aesthetically a bit more on the contemporary side, but I also don't like to turn my back on the past, because that's how we got here. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a preservationist,
Right.
but it's a philosophy of
and
how
design
you
like
kind
fake
of
columns or something, like
right.
which could be cool too, but yeah.
Yeah, they can be cool too, but it's this idea of balancing. Everything in our lives is about balance, right? It's about whether it's our energies, or whether it's the past to the future, or whether it's you know our diet or our sleep schedule.
I love
It's
it.
all about balance. And I think this project, when you look at it, you can see like a lot of the original historic details, the leaded glass on the right hand side, which relates to the new glazing in the storefront
bottom
part.
in that bottom part. Yeah, you've just kind of continued that line there. I also love because I'm such a fan of old industrial buildings. I love the black mullions, the gridded mullions as well. It's really beautiful. And what it reminds me of too, I also did a renovation project way back for a client in Switzerland, and they had an old house. And I just remembered like thinking about a lot of the projects I saw in Toronto where, you see these old houses and then it's like there's this sever between the old and the new, but it's so cut. And there's just this kind of like this black box attached to the old house. And you're just like, what about merging it? What about the balance? What about honoring the past? It's kind of like, well, I wanted to really just do a modern building, and I just stuck it on the back of this old house. It just didn't feel holistic to me. And so I really appreciate this building, this house, for that reason. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, Rachel, I know you've got, you're on a time limit. We could just bring this image down. Thank you so much for sharing these beautiful windows into the craft and quality and textures and stories of all of your beautiful work. What I wanted to do is just before we get into the Q&A session, I know that I don't even know, do you have time for it? 5 minutes?
I don't know that I actually do. I'm so sorry because I literally have a college tour with my daughter. That's like
right now. Okay. So everyone, Rachel's she's a mom. All of you who are moms understand. We wish you well with the college tour for your daughter. And, if you have would you be open for audience members to share questions with us? And that we forward them on to you if they have any specific questions for you? Would you be open?
Yeah, I was just going to say I'd be happy to answer questions if anybody wants to send me any. That's great. Absolutely.
Great. So then we'll share your contact. I mean, your email. Not email, website. Okay. So people can see your work and what you're up to, and then if we get questions, we'll also forward them on to you as well. Okay.
Fantastic. Yes. People can also follow me at RHG Design on Instagram and send questions there as well if they'd like. Yeah.
Zoe, my assistant Zoe, can you share all of Rachel's links and Instagram? I'm just going to share the Instagram. Oh, can I share with everyone? Oh, it's because I'm a co-host. I don't think I can share. Anyway. All right. Well, we'll get those to everyone here. I'm going to wrap up the series, but you can go ahead and go in spirit of time. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking with you.
It was so great to have you.
I look forward to seeing everybody else's conversations as well.
Yes. And you can catch the recordings too. Yeah.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
All right. Wishing your daughter well.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye. So everyone, let me just see if I can. Why can't I share here? I want to share. Zoe, can you share? There we go. Thanks. All right. So everybody, you can follow Rachael at RHG Design, and her website is here. Awesome. Beautiful. Thanks, Zoe. All right. So if you do have any questions for Rachael, again, please send them to us. You can just reply to the emails that are coming from us, and we'll make sure that Rachael gets those questions. My apologies. We just didn't have time for today's bonus Q&A with Rachael. If you do have any specific questions for me right now, I'm open to answering your questions. I mean, it's not really about me today, but if you do have any specific questions, please just share them now. There's, here we go. We've got, all right. Okay, Vijay is clapping. Great. Hrdele, what is the first thing you do when you approach a new property assignment? Hrdele, send that question over to us via email, and we'll forward that to Rachael, and we'll get an answer for you, okay? What else? What else? If you have any questions for me, please do send them over now. I'm going to wrap up by introducing tomorrow's guest. Her name is Kata Trom, and she is the creator of Mind Space Method. She is based in Hungary, and she takes a very soulful and very interesting approach to interiors by helping you to tap in and tune into the energy of the objects around you. She is the author of 2 books, Mind Space Method and Why is the Chair Over There? I love the name of this book. And you're going to get to hear more about these books and her unique way of practicing practicing interiors, practicing interior design. So don't miss it. So the clocks have changed in some countries around the world this weekend. So we want to make sure that you don't miss each day the interview. We go according to 4 p.m. Istanbul time, and just set that in your calendar, okay? Set that in your calendar. It was great to have all of you join. I'm curious, before you go, some of you are still here. Are you architects, designers, property owners? What are you up to? What are you up to, if you're open to sharing? Interior designer. Hey, nice. Nicole, nice to have you. Nice to see you. Architect. Hey, Christian. Nice to have you. Architect. Yay, Marta. Beautiful. Garden and landscape architect. Woo! Yes. Architect. Yes. I hope this resonated with you. I hope that you enjoyed today's talk. And I love serving you all. I love serving you all. Oh, okay. Nice, Natalie. Neither, but I've been studying feng shui and house whispering. Beautiful, beautiful. So glad you joined. So glad you joined. You're welcome, Martha. You're welcome. I had a lot of fun today. I would have loved Rachael to be here longer, but anyway, I'm glad she was able to accommodate. I felt called to attend, not a designer, not an architect. Okay, yes. Well, you never know. I mean, there aren't any rules. You may be feeling called to work with land energy and tune into the spirit of nature. Share, you can send me an email if you are curious about how to discover more of this new way of designing in partnership with the land. So glad you felt called to attend. Yay. Okay, I see a question coming in. BJ, I'm a male. I hadn't realized this was centered for females. I hope I'm not encroaching, but I was drawn to this by Mother Earth and the Divine Feminine. Of course. And I hear that you've been drawn to this by Mother Earth and the Divine Feminine. You're absolutely not encroaching. I do work with partners, males, females, more in the property design realm. I choose to work more with women architects and designers, as that just seems to be what I'm attracting more. Women are seeing themselves in me, right? And so this is not really about want to just really express this. I value so much men doing this work as well, and I deeply, deeply respect the divine masculine. Without him, I wouldn't be able to run this business. Without the divine masculine, I would not be able to run this business. And I am so, so grateful for him. And perhaps you have more of the divine feminine flowing through you right now and inspiring you. So I'm curious, are you involved in working on a project, or you have a vision for the new earth? Please do share with me. You can send me an email. I have received some emails from you in response to my video that I shared with you. I want you to know I've received them. I've just been very, very full with preparing for the interview series, but this week I will be taking time to respond to all of you, okay? And if you haven't yet responded to my video, I have a question in there for you. Watch it. There's a video email. Watch it and respond. I'd love to hear more from you if you're interested in this work. So that's my background. You're not encroaching. So great to have you. Currently designing a healing center on a Greek island with full land geomancy and the goddess of the island. Oh, thank you, Christian, for doing your work on this planet. So beautiful. So glad to hear that work is continuing. And just saying with VJ, quantity surveyor and design engineer, architectural and structural. Amazing. Okay, so you are in this work. Amazing. And so if you're feeling called to work in this way, send me an email and let's talk about how you can weave this work more into the way you practice. We need men to be doing this work as well. I have so much gratitude when I came across your interview series, Aisha, because you are spiritually aligned with new earth frequencies, which I am too. Yes, I've just found geometric models. That was how I found you. Yay, great. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm so happy that you found this series, and I look forward to seeing you each day in this series. We have amazing guest speakers. Yeah, I love it. Laura, New York, ecology, healthcare, high sensitivity, awakening, earth keepers, landscape design, feng shui, sacred geometry, and whatnot. I love it. You're amazing, Laura. That's so great. So good to have you in this circle as part of this movement. I love it. So beautiful. I love it. You're amazing. So glad to have all of you. Well, we are coming close to the top of the hour, and I'm going to wrap up now slowly. If you have a couple more things you want to share now, I can stay on for one more minute. Otherwise, we'll wrap up. Make sure that you join tomorrow's session with tomorrow's talk with Kata. You'll be like super, super inspired by this woman. She's amazing. And don't forget to check your spam and promotions folders, just in case the login and password information go there to access your limited time recordings. All right. So great to have you. I can feel all of you. So nice. So great to have you in this space. All right, everybody. Mwah. Thanks for opening the Sacred Blueprint with me today. And I look forward to seeing all of you each day for 8 days. And we'll see you tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.